Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to get through several headlines today. And by the end of the show, we're definitely going to have time for an open topic discussion at the end. We are going to be talking a little bit about the Epstein victims and that kind of thing. But there's a lot more to this story than you're reading in the headlines, you guys. That's what we're going to discuss today. Let's hop right in. Hot Mike picks up Putin and Z discussing organ transplants and immortality. What is going on? Well, let's read. Russian President Putin walked shoulder to shoulder with Xi Jinping Wednesday. Hot Mike caught them discussing organ transplants and the possibility that humans could live to 150 years old. The moment came as Putin and Xi walked with North Korea Kim Jong-un at the head of the delegation of more than 24 foreign leaders to view a military parade in Beijing. The moment was carried on the live stream provided by state broadcaster, blah, blah, blah. As Putin and Xi walked toward the Tiananmen rostrum where they viewed the parade with Kim, Putin's translator could be heard saying in Chinese, "Biotechnology is continuously developing." The translator added, after an audible passage, "Human organs can be continuously transplanted. The longer you live, the younger you become, and you can even achieve immortality." In response, Xi was off camera, can be heard responding in Chinese. Some predict that in this century, humans may live to 150 years old. Kim was smiling and looking in the direction of Putin and Xi, but it was not clear if the conversation was being translated for him. Wow. Now, this brings into question all kinds of things, right? Organ farms, literal slaves, people like trapped in some kind of secret location and secret building and their organs being harvested. Or people like these world leaders could have clones made of themselves that are growing at the same rate that they could then harvest the clones out of or the organs out of, because it would be an exact match, right? This is unbelievable, and I'm sure there's more to the conversation, but that was apparently what was caught on a hot mic between those two leaders. Now, remember McDonald's used to have the value meals? And I don't recommend eating McDonald's on any kind of regular basis or at all, but I thought the value menu was dead and buried, but apparently they're bringing it back, and this has to be a sign of the economy, even though Trump says the economy's strong. There is no unemployment. Inflation is down. This is what we're told in the mainstream, right? But it's all a lie. And they are bringing back the value menu. Remember, this was like the early 2000s is the last time we saw a value menu at McDonald's. Now, of course, why are they doing this? It's not because they're trying to help people out so they can eat more McDonald's. I mean, they are, but that's because they don't want to pay out Social Security. So the more people that they can get to eat this stuff on a regular basis, the less Social Security they got to pay out when people die prematurely. The big joke now is people work their whole life, they get to 65, and they start collecting Social Security, and within 5 years, they're dead. Wow. Now, Trump has shown his hand with this whole Epstein case, and everyone is sitting around stunned. All this power that he has to deploy armed men into cities and secure the border, fire anybody he wants to at will. He's powerless to release the files. Let's read this update. Now we're going to talk about this in a little bit different way than you're probably accustomed to. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this case and what it possibly means for our future. Frantic Trump tries to kill the vote to force open the Epstein files. He ran on transparency and all this stuff, but it's exactly the opposite when it comes to this. He's still doubling down on this being a left-wing hoax, even though, as we speak, the victims were at the Capitol 100 victims. And there's probably more that didn't make it to the gathering for one reason or another. There were 100 victims. The White House has warned Republican rebels in Congress that pushing for a full release of the Epstein files would be seen as a very hostile act, he said. So now it's hostile to want the truth. Now, if you aren't caught up on all this, the documents that have been released so far were already released. All they did was re-release the documents. There was almost no new information. So it was a smokescreen. Now, to the layperson that's just browsing the headlines, they're going to think, oh, they already released the files. How much more do they want? No, it's the same files. 97% of the documents were already in the public record. So Trump is doubling down on this, but there is no escape from this. People are coming forward. The victims are coming forward. But it's a controlled release is the problem. Now, here's some more information. Jeffrey Epstein kept an 8x10 framed picture of Donald Trump on his desk, and one of the survivors yesterday claimed that it was his biggest brag. So this was September 3rd, yesterday, and all these victims came forward. Here's some pictures of this. Let's read this. Several of Epstein's alleged victims spoke publicly on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, September 3rd, in an attempt to urge Congress to release more evidence on the billionaire predator. While some of the Justice Department Epstein files were released the day prior, Representative Tom Massey and Democrat Representative Ro Khanna hosted the bipartisan press conference to call for full government transparency, including in regard to President Trump's history with Epstein. Absolutely. Well, he's in the files, so if we get that unredacted, then it will show everything for what it is, right? Now, those files will probably never see the light of day, but it doesn't mean we can't ask for them. Now, the victims are now saying that they are actually going to compile their own list. They're going to cross-reference their own list of all the people that they interacted with, all of the clients that Epstein was trafficking these people out to. And as this whole thing was going down at the Capitol, Trump decides to fly over jets to drown out the people as he was meeting with this guy, and the jets flew over, completely disregarding the victims. He's literally siding with the perpetrators and his friends because he has something to protect and he has something to hide. Now, if you think this whole Epstein thing is a distraction, you're sadly mistaken. Now, how it's being handled and covered up, that is the story. Trump obviously wants us all to get over it. And so do the AI troll bots that come into the comment sections of my videos. They want us all to get over it too. Oh, Casey, just go back to decoding. Just go back to decoding. You're better at that anyway. AI chatbots in comment section with the same exact sentiment repeated over and over again, word for word, from different accounts. Go back to your Toy Story decodes. Go back to decoding. You're better at that, word for word. We'll talk a little bit more about the AI troll army, because that's been outsourced as well to AI. They don't even need to hire humans anymore to do it. We'll get into that at the end of the show here, but understand that Trump wants to get over this. But now there are hundreds of victims at the rally, and there could be more. Some people estimate there were thousands of victims. And no doubt, anybody with a brain knows that because Trump and Clinton both were really close to Epstein for at least a decade, that there has to be at least one victim that saw Trump or Clinton. Now, why they weren't allowed to speak about all this is beyond me. Maybe Trump already accounted for and paid off his victims, which would include a gag order, because when you get awarded money, usually it comes with, you got to sign this document saying you cannot say anything about this. We also know that some were already rounded up and or possibly killed. Now, what is this all about? Well, this is about our sin. This is about our sin. And what we're willing to overlook, what we're willing to sweep under the rug. Will Americans hold these people accountable with our actions? And I'll get into how you can do that in a bit. But this is what's going on, you guys. 100 Epstein victims were at the rally. And they are now compiling a list. Now, if Trump doesn't show up in this list that they're compiling, I'll know for sure there's some funny business going on. Because again, you can't have the close proximity of these people as best friends and not have at least 1 to 5 people of the thousands that saw them. And this is where we get into media complicity, right? Because the left, they have quite a bit to hide as well, don't they? And this is how you know that the media, even the left-wing media, is complicit in this cover-up. We covered a little bit of this yesterday, and they had the panel of 6 of the victims on NBC. And they were talking to them, and there was some funny business going on there. And the media is even seeming to forget that Trump's name is listed all over the files that won't be released. They're already starting to back away from that narrative, which we already know is true, because they told us that Pam Bondi was flagging every time Trump's name was mentioned in the files. She was sent to do that. So he's in the files. Now, what's said about him, that's something else that we don't know. But I'm starting to hear phrases in the media, even left-wing media, things like, even though Trump's name is not in the files, his rich and powerful friends' names were. We need those names. And they're already starting to talk down this narrative. Even some of the victims are saying things like this. Never forget, Trump's names were all over the files. They were all redacted by Pam Bondi. Remember, she was working feverishly to remove his name from the files. So we got to keep all this straight. What else I'd like to see is a list of gag orders. We don't need to know what was said in the gag order, but if there was a gag order placed on a victim who was paid off, that would be an indication of guilt, even if the victim already settled. So, the media is complicit. They have things they want to cover up as well. They're covering for their side who are in the files. They're covering for Bill Clinton. And on the panel discussion yesterday, they should have asked, even if they said Trump and Clinton didn't do anything wrong from the 6 victims that were on the panel, they should have at least asked, well, okay, what kind of interactions did you have with Bill Clinton or Epstein? I'm sorry, and Donald Trump. Did you ever meet them? Now, if those 6 victims said, I never met them, never saw them, didn't know them, then we would know that they hand selected those victims. Now, what else is going on? Well, they want us all to believe this is a distraction, but it's absolutely not, 100% not a distraction. It is a controlled release of the information for us all to try to accept the outcome, and we should not accept the prepackaged outcome that they give us. This is our opportunity to find out what's really going on. Now, this is Truth 101, you guys. This is what channels like this were born to do. Keep the media and governments accountable. How? With grassroots research, catching them in their lies and their inconsistencies. And why do we do this? It's to protect each other from tyranny. Because without checks and balances, without grassroots research, checking these people in their lies, then tyranny reigns, doesn't it? Because the ultimate goal of the elite is to be able to get away with what they want to fleece the American people, and to have complete and total control. Back to yesterday's panel discussion. We found the Monarch pin on Virginia Giuffre's brother's lapel, which was just weird. And then there was the mysterious new victim who she introduced the mental health self-unalived aspect to the victims. Not good. So now that opens the door in case someone gets unalived. Oh, they had mental health problems. They couldn't deal with the trauma, so they unalived themselves. Wow. And then the fact that the hand-selected victims, they named no names. Nobody was named of those 6 victims on the panel. Never saw Clinton, never saw Trump. But yet we know that they were both tight with Epstein for at least a decade. Somebody at least saw them. We get no stories even about encounters, which is a question that should have been asked in the interview. Did you see Bill Clinton? Did you see Donald Trump? Now, we all know what a narcissist is. The very definition of a narcissist is somebody who will lie and lie and lie, even when the truth is staring everyone in the face. A true narcissist will go to the grave with the truth, and a master narcissist, they're able to lie so well that they can get the majority of the people around them to believe their lie. And I believe that's what's happening right now. Both the right and the left have skeletons in the closet, and they're probably at this point working together to give us a controlled version of the truth without too much damage. They're in damage control, aren't they? Now, how do we overcome all this? Well, believe it or not, it's not as hard as you might think. It's not about showing up to a rally. It's not about, gaining a huge social media following so that you can make an impact. Obviously, that doesn't work either. Here we are, right? What kind of impact are we really making? Other than, getting together and talking about all this stuff, I'm not sure these days. I'm not sure how much of an impact we're making. But how do you, on your level, make an impact? Well, how do you starve the beast? You starve the beast by doing the opposite of everything that they promote and try to sell to you. Opting out of the madness is our only choice to make a difference spiritually here. Now, we all know that in the end, all this kind of has to happen for Jesus to come back. But that doesn't mean you go along with it. That does not mean you go along with it. So how do you starve the beast? How do you sit on the right side of spirituality instead of the dark side with the beast and giving in and giving power to the beast? Well, no more voting. Very little consumerism. No more of their paid entertainment. No more of their new shiny things, their phones, their new cars. No more working in their tech industries, no more building their infrastructure, their 5G, their 6G, their data centers, their overpriced homes. No more admiration of their celebrities. No more paying for sports, going to their movie theaters, signing up for their military, investing in their stocks. Starve the beast at every angle. And starve it even more against the egregious offenders. The Palantirs of this world, the Elon Musks of this world. You double down. And if we all gathered together to starve the beast of its power, it would lose its power, wouldn't it? because its power originates in the mind. America is one big mind control illusion. We are the ones building our own oppression and prison because we believe the lie. The lie that they have the power when they absolutely don't. Well, Casey, how do you do that? How do you do that? That's impossible. You're basically asking us to, not do anything. Well, I've already done it. It's a very narrow road, but I've already done it. It's not that hard. It's about will. It's about seeing the pain and suffering and unfairness and tyranny in this world and making a choice. Not to go to a concert, not to sign up for cable television, not to buy their overpriced homes, not to spend all your money into their tax and insurance system. By spending and buying less, not buying their brand new things, their brand new phones, their brand new cars, not investing in their system of money. It's not that hard, you guys. I'm trying to be the example, but instead, sometimes I get haters. It's beyond me. Most of these, well, I won't say most, but many YouTubers are just the opposite. They're telling, I don't understand it. They're not being the example that they're telling you to be. But this is the system we live in. They call evil good and good evil. So the person that's trying to show you is the one that's hated or discredited. Now, what else is going on? Check this out. Florida, the first state to get rid of the school vaccine mandate. Wow, this is huge, you guys. This is a good thing. Now, they're not saying a parent can't vaccinate their child if they're afraid, right? But it's no longer a requirement. So that's a good thing in Florida. If you live in Florida and you have children, you no longer have to succumb to this pressure. But, there's a reason why they're doing this, right? The reason is probably because school enrollment's probably down. A lot of people are homeschooling. They're like, oh my goodness, how do we get these kids back to school for more indoctrination? Let's see here. Let's keep reading. Actually, I wanted to read this. Let's hop back onto this Epstein thing, this framed picture, because this article talks about what kind of happened yesterday with the victims speaking out. A handful of Jeffrey Epstein alleged victims spoke out during a press conference. Bipartisan group of lawmakers hosted the presser to call for the release of all the Epstein files. We already know all this. One survivor, Shantae Davies, alleged in her remarks that Epstein and President Trump were very close. Widely reported detail that Trump has tried to distance himself from in recent years. Okay, I think we pretty much covered all that. All right. Now, what else is going on? More billionaires bragging about how we aren't going to have anything left to do. We're not going to have any way to pay our mortgages and our bills because there won't be any jobs left because it's all being taken over by AI. ConocoPhillips says it will lay off up to 25% of its workforce. Wow. Here we go, you guys. Impacting thousands of jobs. Of course, ConocoPhillips is a petroleum industry. Well, giant ConocoPhillips is planning to lay off up a quarter of its workforce, part of a broader efforts from the company to cut costs. So this next story is weird. A drone search for this woman. Wait, what? A missing college professor. They found her. Wait. Northwestern University professor rushed to Chicago area hospital after cops call on drones in desperate search. This was yesterday. 72-year-old Northwestern University professor has been found and taken to the hospital after being reported missing in Chicago. Nina? Wow. Okay. Next. Unbelievable. Now, Trump is doubling down on another right-left paradigm by pretending to call out Pfizer for the vaccine. Wow. The pharmaceutical companies reply here with what could be construed as a dig right back at Trump. How? Well, the kettle calling the pot black. They're now saying that they deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. Wow. Now, their response here, that they should have received the Nobel Peace Prize for creating warp speed, is kind of like how Trump says he should get the Nobel Peace Prize for stopping wars that he didn't stop, right? The whole notion that either should get the Nobel Peace Prize is a joke. And it's almost like they're quipping back at him, right? Like they're joking back at him like, okay, we deserve the Nobel Peace Prize just like you deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, which neither of them do. As the plot thickens with this whole thing. Let's read this one. In response to a call from Trump to make the positive impact of the vaccination, drug giant Pfizer posted a collection of more than 200 news releases and statements and 27 peer-reviewed data publications since early 2020. President Trump call for transparency is welcomed. We remain deeply committed to that principle, says the Pfizer chief executive officer. Now, remember, never forget, never forget. Trump World Tower sits in the middle of the pharmaceutical headquarters, which all surround the UN building. They're all right there. Trump's building is the tallest of them all, even overshadowing the Secretariat building at the UN. They've known this for a very, very long time, what this was all going to do. Bill Gates was a tenant at Trump's World Tower next to these pharmaceutical headquarters in Manhattan, even though they claim to be enemies of one another. One of the first people that Trump met with after he got reelected was Bill Gates. Came to Trump Tower and they had a secret meeting. Nothing is what it seems, you guys. These people are all just players, pretending. So let's keep reading here. Transparency has always been a cornerstone of trust, and we're continuing to provide clear, factual data to the public. Oh, kind of like your lobby that has all this alchemy in it and Egyptian weirdness in the lobby of Pfizer. Remember the video we did on that? Oh, it's about transparency, even though we got secret occult stuff all throughout our lobby. On Monday, Trump implored drug companies to justify the success of their various COVID drugs in a post. Well, it's a little bit too late now, dude. It's a little bit too late. And anybody who's paying attention knows that a lot of people are dying suddenly in plain sight. All you got to do is look around and ask around. But the mind control is thick, isn't it? Even as people drop out around us, many people are still in disbelief and denial. Their ego will not let them wake up to the truth. Now, what else? Oh, look, another drug bust. 1,300 barrels of metforminide and benzyl alcohol, precursors to methamphetamines that were headed to the Sinaloa drug cartel. There's Janine Pereiro or whatever. Piro. Here are all the canisters of precursors to meth that were headed to the drug cartel. Notice we're getting all these drug busts now. What a joke. So, guess any day now, the prices of meth on the streets is going to go through the roof, right? If they're finding all this stuff, right? It should be almost impossible to get now. Not. Now, before we open up the show to your topics today, I want to briefly address a new phenomenon called AI trolling. Yeah, I've seen this intensify over the last at least couple years because along with the outsourcing of other jobs to artificial intelligence, they are now outsourcing social media channel trolling. It's been turned over to the chatbots, and they can literally create sentiment in comment sections. We already saw it with, remember the whole like Bitcoin thing and Binance. Remember Binance was trolling our comment sections? They basically would put a comment in there and then they had 6 or 7 people reply to the comment and say, ooh, I want to check out Binance. I want to get that. I want to check out that crypto. And then the bots could actually thumbs up each other. So the comment would reach like 20 or 30 thumbs up before I could find it and delete it. Well, now they're going after actual channels that are, I guess they're worried about. So I guess we are making some headway, aren't we? Because if they're trolling us with AI chatbots, then that means that we're doing something. Now I can always tell when I'm reading an AI chatbot comment when I go and I search the channel name. Whoever's trolling me, I'll search the channel, go onto the channel name, and they don't have any videos listed, or it's something weird, like it's a bunch of cartoons or something like that, right? And also find that they've never ever commented on the channel before, yet their comment makes it seem as though they are like a longtime subscriber. They'll start the sentence out with something positive. They'll say, I love your channel. I've been following you for years. And they'll flip the script. They'll say, but I'm concerned about the direction your channel is going. You should stick to your decodes. That's usually the sentiment that I will get. And you could spot it a million miles away because someone that's been coming to the channel for all those years would have commented at least once over the past 8 years, right? But yet they have not, which tells me it's fake. Now, here's where it gets creepy because sometimes the comments get pretty specific, almost as if the AI actually did look at our channel and found something that was popular, but we already covered that. And the thing is you guys, is the videos are on the channel. If you're concerned about the direction of the channel, go back and watch the old videos. They're still out there. It's not my fault YouTube won't recommend those videos. I can't keep doing the same videos over and over again, right? So I tell people, look, if you want to see more of that, just watch it. It's on the channel. Just do a search and watch it. Just because it's not showing up in your feed doesn't mean it's not something we've focused on and covered before. Now, typically these comments are well thought out with 0 grammatical errors, which is not normal for people typing on a phone, right? There's always some kind of error in the grammatic, in the punctuation or something like that. And I know because I do it myself. And again, it starts off with something somewhat truthful. It gathers the attention. Sometimes they'll put like an attractive person's picture on there to get everyone's attention. And then they'll end with a lie. So I'm at a point now where I can kind of spot these AI generated comments and I'll delete them because it's not real. It's not real sentiment. Sometimes I'll respond to them just to call them out and I'll never get another reply after I respond. Now, the comment section of most channels have been overrun by this nonsense. And it's funny because YouTube pushes this whole phony organic growth and content narrative. Remember how hard they were on content creators saying, oh, that has to be organic growth. You can't get growth from here or there. That's not organic. Well, they can't even control their own platform and enforce organic comments. So what does that tell you? So that's what I wanted to say on AI chatbots. And just be cognizant of that. When you're reading a comment, looking to see if it is a real organic comet or not. Now, I'll open up the show today for your topics. This is always the best part of the show. I like listening to what you guys want to talk about. So, again, if you're kind of new to this part of the show, basically in capital letters, you're allowed to use capitals for topics that you want to talk about or you want me to talk about and bring up. We might even do some polls based on your topics. You can put those in capitals right now. I'll spend a few minutes recording them. I'll just type them up here, and then I'll go through them one by one. But you got to use capitals, otherwise I'm not going to see it because the chat's going by pretty fast. Let me put this on live chat so I could see all the comments. All right. Good morning. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for you guys showing up. Yeah, hit the like button if you can. Put your questions in caps. Yes, Rebecca, thank you. If you don't know how to do that, you just hit the shift button or the caps lock, I'm sorry, and that will lock your typing into caps. Okay. Dead internet theory, says Hot Takes. Can you expand on that a little bit? Chicago situation, dead internet. I'm typing these in. Chicago situation. We did talk about that already, but I'll give NBC never covered Jeffrey in 20 years. Shouldn't we call them out? Good. That's a good question. NBC didn't cover Epstein. Should we call them out? I'll take two more. Okay. Yeah, we talked a lot about the jab meatball, so I won't expand on that. AI is 19. Yeah, we've covered that before. Current earthquake swarms. That's not really my forte. I used to cover those. Power outages. Yes, let's talk about that. Because that's been a thing. And it's not normal. Why do you think the girls are smiling? You're talking about the victims? Why are the girls smiling? Okay. For entertainment purposes only, you agreed. For whose entertainment? Yeah, that's a workaround here on YouTube. If you put politics in the purpose of our videos or the subject matter, immediately it gets flagged and put to the bottom. So it's our little workaround so that they can't derail our channel. So it's not really entertainment. It's what we have to put down. Thank you, YouTube, for that. All right. Burning Man sacrifice. Yeah, we already covered that in a previous show. Talked about the death and the birth that happened there. That was yesterday's show. Ice cream trucks after dark, says Mims. I don't know about that, so I'll have to research that for a future show. The overall lethargy among everyone. Okay, let's talk about lethargy. Tiredness of everyone. Okay, let's go ahead and go through these. Dead internet theory. I don't really know. I haven't delved into that very much. I don't really want to speak on that unless you can expand on that. Okay. Chicago situation. Yeah. So Trump has named Chicago and a couple other cities that he's going to go into and supposedly root out illegals, as if Chicago has a ton of illegals in it, right? Like you could probably go to two neighborhoods in Chicago and that would be where most of like the illegals are. Okay, it's not like a hotbed for illegals. The further away you get from the border, you just don't see huge concentrations of illegals. Even here in rural Arkansas, which is somewhat close to the border, you don't see a lot of illegals out here. You just don't, because they stand out. When it's 98% white people out here, you can spot an illegal a mile away. So I don't know what it's like in Chicago, but that's not the reason why Trump's going there. They're setting up some kind of infrastructure for future events. So that's probably what they're up to. And they know the events are coming. And so they're setting up the military. They're doing practice. Okay, remember back at Jade Helm and all that? Remember we had Black Hawk helicopters flying through Los Angeles? Well, those were precursors to what's happening right now. They're practice drills. They're getting the military used to being in civilian areas. They're basically desensitizing them to it, that it's okay. Why? Because they're practicing. Well, now they've stepped up their game. We've got presidents now sending this in, so they're not even hiding anymore, sending in military force into cities, and now everyone's desensitized to it. Both the military is desensitized to it, and the people are desensitized to it, and they're doing it under the Trojan horse of rooting out illegals, which nobody really disagrees with. So those are my thoughts on the Chicago situation. Now, we've covered it over the last couple weeks here and there, but okay, so let's move on to the next topic. NBC didn't cover Epstein. Should we call them out? Well, absolutely. But that's more of the right-left paradigm, right? The reason why, okay, think about this. The reason why NBC is now covering this is because they have to. There has been a grassroots effort to have these files released. Even Trump's base turned against them. Make no mistake, you guys, this is real stuff. Like, his base turning against him like this, he's in trouble politically, but he's really not, because they have complete control. They don't really give a crap what we think anymore. But the fact that the very people that made him president are now turning against him, that means something, doesn't it? So both sides are working together. They're going to try to sweep this under the rug. Somebody has to cover it, because they can't just not cover it, because then it becomes more of a story the more they ignore it. So the football has been given to the left. The football has been given to the left to pretend to be the ones showing us the truth. That way, when they're defeated, then the truth is defeated. Does that make sense? So it's like pawns on a chessboard. They've given the left the football. They've given the left the power of truth right now. But no one's going to believe it, because the left loses. They've lost. The left is the loser. They lost the election. Nobody likes them anymore. And so this is what's happening. So that's why, we should call out all the sides. It's not just NBC. If you're still calling out one side or the other, you're still in the paradigm. You don't understand that they're all working together to cover each other. Now, power outages. Yeah, we covered that. I actually had a power outage during, was that yesterday's show? Gosh, the days run together now. And so I asked in the comments, so it's interesting you guys bring that up. I asked in the comments if other people had power outages, and there were people from other states all over the United States who had a power outage. And it's weird. It's always in the same time in the morning. It's like early morning, and the power goes out for 2 to 3 hours. So you've got different grids. How is this possible that all these different grids that are on different networks and different circuits, or whatever you call it, different grids that aren't supposed to not be connected to each other, why are they all having power outages at the same time within a week of each other? So there's something going on with that. Now, some people are blaming it on the solar flares. I don't know. I believe it's probably the data centers sucking up all the power. And they don't want to tell us yet that, we had to divert all this energy to the data centers because they need to stay cooled, right? Because they got electronics. So they're energy hogs. I mean, if you could look at a map of all the electricity use being sucked away off of the grid by these data centers, you would be in shock. And what that means for us is our energy costs will slowly rise over time, and it will be another tax burden. And we'll basically be paying the data centers for our own enslavement. So that's where it's all headed. And it's the fact that they're so secretive about it. That's what burns me out. It's like, okay, if we're having grid issues, this needs to be front page news. You need to talk about this. You can't just sweep this under the rug. You can't just shut off the power for 3 hours and then there's no explanation as to why that happened. And if you're going to shut off the power, we should get a credit for food spoilage, or we should get $25 off of our next bill for the inconvenience that we had to have to fire up our generators and, you know, be hot or whatever. Like, no one's addressing the obvious, you guys. If you're going to shut someone's power off, you need to compensate them for the loss of that power. Otherwise, it's just a bottomless pit of costs going one way and not coming back the other way. It's just not fair, is it? All right. Why are the girls smiling? Next topic. Now, are you talking about the victims, the Epstein victims? I did not pick up on that. Were they smiling? Understand that the people that are up there on the stage, if they were in fact smiling, the people that are up there on the stage, the quote unquote victims, they are hand selected. They're hand selected just like Virginia Giuffre was hand selected to be a spokesperson. I'm not saying that what happened to her didn't happen, but she was probably selected to speak out about this because either she was already paid off by Trump to not talk about him, or she honestly didn't ever actually interact with Trump. Now, I'm not saying there are probably hundreds of the victims that didn't run into Trump, but there are just as many that didn't. There are hundreds more that also did run into Trump, but those aren't the ones being selected to speak as spokespeople. Does that make sense? So they might not necessarily be lying, but they're only selecting the ones that they know they can control the narrative. What they don't want is the narrative to go out of control. They don't want one of the victims to get up there and say, yeah, I saw Trump and he did this, this, and that. That would be their worst nightmare. And they'll never let that happen because they screen all these people. They screen them and they know exactly what they're going to say before they even say it. They could be held by a gag order. If it's a panel discussion, they can edit out the parts that they don't want the public to see before they actually, air it, which is what I believe happened with the panel discussion yesterday on NBC. So if some of the girls are smiling, some of them might be plants, not real victims, to shape the narrative. We know the CIA does this. We know governments do this. They plant people. Okay, next topic, the tiredness of everybody, feeling fatigue and lethargy. Oh man, I don't know. I've gone through periods in my life where I felt like that. I feel like it could be, I believe it's the 5G technology is probably one of the main things. I believe our bodies are also under attack biologically by different things that they don't tell us about. I had to think long and hard about the whole chemtrail situation and all these things. And I thought to myself, okay, we know that they're real, but how are the elite escaping the effects of the chemtrails? Do they have some kind of antidote? Because otherwise, it's the same trails falling on everybody, right? Rich or poor, great or small. So I don't know the answers to that, but we need to weigh all these things in the balance when we're talking about them to other people. Otherwise, they're not going to believe us. We need to try to find, how the elite are protecting themselves from these things because they go outside too. They're exposed to the same chemtrails we are, right? And then we've got this 5G technology and 6G now. We're into 6G and 7G is on the horizon. And I believe all these millimeter waves could be causing, variations in our biology on some level. I think I remember reading a study where they said that they hit like bacteria or something or fungus with millimeter waves and it grew out of control. So people's bodies are being taken over by parasites and funguses and molds. We're also seeing it in the wildlife. I believe that it has something to do with frequencies. These wildlife coming down with these grotesque illnesses and sicknesses, squirrels, rabbits, and deers. We've covered that on previous shows. So that could be something to do with it as well. All right. Okay, I'm back in the chat, you guys. Thanks for all the great topics. This was kind of a long show, so I'm going to go ahead and end it there. But come back tomorrow with more topics in capitals, and we can talk about anything you guys want. Much love. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.